Hello Hollows, and welcome to another video and another boss ranking. Before we move on to Dark Souls 2, we need to go through all of the bosses that we fought during the Dark Souls 1 series on the channel and rank them all. First of all, from easiest to hardest. Well, depends which order I release the videos in actually. This could be first, this could be second. I don't know. Anyway then, so first of all we've got two bosses which I think you'll never die to them. They're almost laughable, the difficulty. Really, they have that little going for them. At number 26, we have Pinwheel. Pinwheel is the laughing stock of this game, really. It's kind of unclear exactly why he is so easy. Many people theorise that the Catacombs is supposed to be another early game path for you to go down, but it just didn't end up that way. So therefore, Pinwheel is an easy boss because players will end up going down there potentially early in the game, and therefore, you know, he's almost like a alternate Taurus Demon in a way. And that makes sense because if you go down and fight him early in the game, he actually does put up a bit of a challenge, but never that much really. And unless you're doing that, there's never any reason why you should die to him. Even on my Soul Level 1 playthrough of the game, which when I've been playing it in my own time, I didn't die to him. Even when I was Soul Level 1, I didn't die to him. So, there you go. Next, at number 25, we have the Asylum Demon. Obviously, he's essentially the tutorial boss of the game, just to sort of make you understand bosses. But it's quite funny that even Pinwheel is easier than him. Because at least with the Asylum Demon, you can get hit sometimes if you don't watch what you're doing. With Pinwheel, usually he never even gets a chance to hit you. So, there you go. Next, we're sort of moving on to bosses that are easy, but there's a chance you might die to them. At 24, we have the Taurus Demon. The Taurus Demon, I remember dying to him many times when I first playing it Dark Souls back in the day, but now, usually dying to him means that I made some mistake, I rolled at the wrong time, or something like that, or I didn't manage to get to the ladder quick enough to do the plunging attack, you know. So, it's not really, you know, so you can die to him, but chances are you won't. So, but because he did kill me so many times earlier on, therefore he has to be 24. He's not as easy as Pinwheel or the Asylum Demon. At number 23, we have a Dark Sun Gwyndolin. Gwyndolin is an optional boss, and the reason why he is this low is because usually, by the time you fight him, you'll have done Analondo. Chances are you might have done beat Gravelord Nito as well, and you're almost at your end game power. You're almost as powerful as you're going to get. So when you take on this optional boss, Gwyndolin, usually you can kill him just by running down the corridors, just dodging through his arrows and kill him first try. Again, you might die to him, but usually it's just because you did something stupid. You rolled at the wrong time, you forgot the timing of when you know, this one arrow or something like this, or you got greedy trying to get in swings. Usually, you're never really going to take damage to this guy, or die to this guy, and that's why he's a 23. At number 22, we have the Ceaseless Discharge. The reason why he isn't lower on this list is because you can die trying to get to the Fog Gate. And the run to the Fog Gate, obviously, he can sometimes manage to take you out at that time when you're trying to make him kill himself. So that's the only reason why he's not lower, is because there's a chance that he can sometimes die while getting there. But when you get there, obviously, he jumps over, and then you whack his arm and he falls to his death. I think I have fought him properly one time, actually. I think I did fight him properly one time. And yes, he can kill you, he is a bit stronger then, but really, because the game actually put in a method for you to kill this boss instantly, there's never really a reason to fight him, is there? The game deliberately put that in there, and no one's ever going to fight him properly, are they really? So, at number 21, we have the Moonlight Butterfly. The Moonlight Butterfly is all about dodging. If you can time the dodges of those soul arrows quickly and effectively, this boss is an absolute breeze. Even if you're a melee build, yes, sometimes if you get the dodges wrong, because obviously you do have to dodge about 20 attacks or something, you know, maybe even 30 if you're doing a melee build, then sometimes, yes, you can end up dying because you get hit too many times with soul arrows, because obviously if you're dodging about 20 or 30 times, you know, occasionally you might mess up the timing. But really, this boss is absolutely easy, an absolute cakewalk, and that's why it's at number 21. Number 20 is the Bed of Chaos. Now the reason why this isn't higher is because the boss itself isn't really your enemy here. Your enemy is gravity and falling because you get knocked by the stupid arms. This boss isn't difficult, it's just stupid. Every time I go and fight against the Bed of Chaos, I know, okay, I'm probably going to die 3, maybe 4 times here, and then I'll end up getting it done every single time. You'll always die a couple times, pretty much every time. I don't think I've beaten the Bed of Chaos without dying at least once, so yeah, that's why it's at number 20. At number 19 is the Centipede Demon. There are some people I know who did have trouble with the Centipede Demon. I don't understand why. Its timings are very easy to dodge. Again, at this point in the game, you're very powerful. It's usually, I don't even need to get the ring from its tail. I just defeat it on that little ledge by the fire gate. So, yeah, it doesn't really warrant talking about much more than that, really. It's just very easy. Attacks are very telegraphed and doesn't have much health. That's why it's at 19. At 18 we have Crossbreed Priscilla. If you are not a pyromancer or a sorcerer, then Priscilla can sometimes potentially be a little bit tough, but not really that much. And if you're a pyromancer, you can kill her without even hitting you. So once you realise that you can see her feet, and she's not completely invisible because you can see the pattern of her feet on the floor, then you can usually kill her very quickly. Again, when you come to the painted or the Variamis, usually it's after you've beaten Ornstein and Smough, or just before. And at that point in the game, you're doing quite a bit of damage, and Priscilla doesn't have much health. I usually kill her in about 6 or 7 swings of my weapon. She's not that tough at all, really, and dying to her is almost an embarrassment sometimes. But because you can, potentially, if you go there a bit earlier, if you go there before Ornstein and Smough, and if you don't have your weapon upgraded as much as you'd like, sometimes if you're going melee and not just leading it to the ledge with pyromancy, sometimes she can kill you a couple times. And I think on my first time through the game, she did kill me about 6 or 7 times. But that's embarrassing, I don't want to talk about that. At number 17 we have the Gaping Dragon. The Gaping Dragon is almost like the opposite of Priscilla, in a way, where the problem with the Gaping Dragon is because it's got loads of health. Priscilla had too little health. The Gaping Dragon has too much health, really. And the problem with the Gaping Dragon is that some of its hitboxes as well are a bit annoying sometimes. It can get you and you don't really feel like it should have got you. And it can be quite frustrating because of that, sometimes, really. I think its health should be toned down a bit, but luckily it is an optional boss, so you don't have to defeat it. But it has too much health, really. If it had maybe 75% of its health, it would be much lower, because its attacks are very well telegraphed. You can dodge them very easily. It's an absolute tank. It's like a boss that we'll talk about later. It's only difficult because it's a tank. So that's why it's at number 17. At number 16, the least of the easy, so the hardest of the easy bosses, is the Bell Gargoyles. The Bell Gargoyles, now, it's quite interesting really, because everyone always usually had trouble with the Bell Gargoyles on their first playthrough of the game. Everyone usually had to try about 8-9 times to beat them. Then the game is trying to teach you to upgrade your weapon, and once you understand that, you realise the Bell Gargoyles are not really that tough. And most of the time when I play the game now, I defeat them on my first or second try, usually. It's quite strange, really, how this is the kind of boss where it kicked your ass when you're a beginner, but when you come to fight them later, it's almost too easy. It's quite strange, really. I usually beat the Bell Gargoyles first or second go, usually, and if I don't beat them first go, it's usually because it's something stupid. But because of the difficulty they pose to newer players, that's why they take the crown in the easy category. Next, moving on to bosses that I would say are medium difficulty. You can die to them a few times, but they're not that hard. And at 15 is Chaos Witch Quelaag. Quelaag was difficult, quite difficult to me on my first playthrough of the game, but now, again, I can beat it usually within 2 or 3 tries, usually. I mean, sometimes first go, I have beat it first go, but usually it takes a couple of tries, and that once you realise that you've got to hog the spider's left side and get right there really close in, and you can dodge her swings if you get there, it's not too hard. And you can even stun lock Quelaag if you're going for sorcery or a bow and arrow build. So she is quite easy, but she can pose a bit of a challenge sometimes, and because you're at Blighttown at that part of the game, it can make that, for newer players anyway, it makes that area even more oppressive because Quelaag is harder than all the other bosses you've fought so far, really. Next we have the Iron Golem, and the Iron Golem is only here because of its one grab attack. That's literally it. The hitbox on that grab attack is absolutely bullshit. You can be behind the Iron Golem, and when it does the grab, it still teleports you inside its fist, and then sometimes it just throws you off. The Iron Golem is not difficult, really, especially if you bring in Tarkus, who can literally one-on-one, 1v1 the Iron Golem and take him down easily. But it's because of that hitbox, and when you're trying to do it on your own, that hitbox can get you sometimes. Just it's very annoying when you're trying to solo the Iron Golem, getting teleported into its fist. Oh, God, getting PTSD of that. So that's the only reason why Iron Golem is harder than Quelaag. Otherwise, it would be lower. It's just that hitbox. That's where the main difficulty of the boss lies to me, really. At number 13, we have the Demon of Firesage. The Demon of Firesage doesn't have anywhere near as much health as the Stray Demon, probably because it's on the critical path. And at this point, usually you will have fought the Stray Demon already, so you already know exactly what moves to expect. I think it only has one different move, and for some reason the Demon Firesage, that lives by fire and is on fire, is weak to fire. Which makes no sense, but I learned that doing my soul level 1 as a pyromancer. Very weird, but yeah, and the Demon of Firesage is at 13 because of all those reasons. So at 12 we have Gwyn, the Lord of Cinder. The final boss of the game is in the medium category, sadly, only because you can parry him. Parrying Gwyn just makes the boss an absolute cakewalk. You can get through it really quickly once you know how to parry him. That's the thing, though, again, usually when you play the game the first time, you're not parrying enemies because parrying is a risk, and when you are new to the game, you don't take unnecessary risks. So therefore, if you're fighting not parrying, he can be somewhat difficult, but even then, he's nowhere near as difficult as bosses you've already fought at this point in the game, like the Four Kings, like Ornstein and Smough. Therefore, at this point, really, he's not too bad, and even as a newer player, you can usually beat him within about 5 or 6 tries. Next we have Great Grey Wolf Sif. So Sif is emotional, and the main difficulty in the boss is because you don't want to kill him because he's a wolf and he's lovely and he's cuddly and fluffy, but unfortunately you do have to put him down, and his moves are quite well telegraphed, but they do deal a lot of damage. Again, it usually depends on what part of the game you fight Sif at. His difficulty in his health leads me to believe you're supposed to sort of fight him around the halfway mark of the game, maybe just before Ornstein and Smough. But then it may be they gave him less health and less power in his attacks because you can potentially come here early. And if you've just fought the Moonlight Butterfly, you might think to yourself, oh, let's go through this door, let's go and fight the boss here. So maybe that's the reason why he has a bit lower health and doesn't deal as much damage as he could do, but he still does deal quite a bit of damage, but it's just not as bad as it could be. On my recent playthrough, I beat him first try as a soul level 1. I also beat him as a first try recently on my first try, but his moves can deal a lot of damage, and he can be potentially difficult, but like all bosses in this game that are monsters or animals, if you just get underneath them, that's sort of the trick to victory. And once you know that with Sif, usually you're going to be okay. So next, at number 10, we have the Capra Demon. The Capra Demon is only this high because of the dogs. And it's not like the Bed of Chaos, where the Bed of Chaos is easy. You know you're always going to have to go through a couple times to take it down. With the Capra Demon, it's just RNG. It just depends on if the dogs decide to just maul you, and if they manage to jump at you when you're going up the stairs and take you down. Usually, it takes about 4 or 5 tries for me to beat the Capra Demon, but that's just getting past the dogs. Once you've got past the dogs, the Capra Demon I always get first go. I've never died to the Capra Demon myself recently. It's always just the dogs, because the Capra Demon is easy. It's just the dogs. So that's why he's at number 10. At number 9 we have the Stray Demon. Again, this Stray Demon is only this high because it's an absolute tank. No matter what build you're doing, no matter how powerful your weapon is, you can't one-shot the Stray Demon. And you probably can. Someone's probably done it somewhere. But no matter how much you upgrade your sword, no matter how strong your pyromancers are, you can have it fully ascended and you still won't be able to beat this guy that easily. He's an absolute tank. He's ridiculous, and luckily he's completely optional. Even if you want to go to the painted world of Aramis, you can still skip this guy. He's completely optional in every single way, but he gives you a Titanite slap. And we want Titanite slaps, so you have to beat the Stray Demon. He's just a tank, that's it, and some of his moves deal loads of damage, and they can one-shot you, especially again on sword level 1. You can get one-shotted to this guy. So it's literally like you one hit and you're dead basically with this guy, which just means that it's just a chore. You've just got to wait for the right time, then hit him 3 times, then step away, then wait for the right time, hit him 3 times, then step away again and again until he's dead. Next we have Gravelord Nito. Gravelord Nito is only harder because he's got all the skeletons around him really, but he also kills the skeletons. He kills his own skeletons, but then he revives them again. This guy, he can do quite a bit of damage, even if you're really strong and you've got good armor on. If he does that move where his sword comes from underneath the ground, that deals a lot of damage. It takes over half your health in one hit. And if that happens and then you get mauled by skeletons straight afterwards, you're guaranteed to die really quickly. But luckily, he's not that bad. His moves, when you get close to him, are well telegraphed. You have a good amount of time to deal damage and punish his attacks when he leaves himself open. But the problem again is all the skeletons around you, and it just makes the boss more annoying than it needs to be, and that's why he's a bit higher on up than he could be. At number 7 we have Seath the Scaleless. Seath... Some people find Seath really easy. Some people get through him very easy. Seath is just one of those bosses that just doesn't work for me. It wasn't until recently I actually found a good, reliable way to take him down. The best way to take him down for me, I found personally, is to put on the Cursebite ring, put on Havel's armor, run right up to around where his crotch is, and just whack him constantly, non-stop, over and over and over again. The curse spikes that come out of the ground, they won't take you down because you're wearing Havel's armor, so they won't knock you up in the air or anything. And if you just tank it and just keep whacking and whacking and whacking and whacking and whacking, you can take him down. But I don't usually like doing that. I usually like properly trying to dodge attacks and properly dodge at the right time and play it like a proper boss. But that's the only reliable way I've found to take this guy down myself. I think it's just something about this guy and the way I play. Something somewhere just means that it's just... I died to him a lot of times. A lot more than I should do, considering I've beaten this game like 7-8 times now. So now we're moving on to bosses that are actually hard. Bosses that are actually difficult for me. At 6 we have the Sanctuary Guardian. The Sanctuary Guardian is the opening boss of the DLC. That's probably why he has less health than he could do, but his attacks deal loads of damage. Even if you're at the end game point in your playthrough, he can knock you on the ground, poison you like crazy. He's very difficult, this guy, and he does a lot of damage, and waiting for the right time to get a proper opportunity. Sometimes you can wait through him comboing like 5 or 6 different attacks together, and then you get a window of opportunity to attack. But this guy is quite difficult, and it's a good opening to the DLC. At number 5 then we have the Four Kings. The Four Kings are another sort of test to see how far your weapons have upgraded really, because you have to deal a lot of damage quickly. You have to take down each king before the next one spawns in. And this is another one of those bosses like Seath which never really worked for me, and I struggled a lot more than I needed to. Recently though, in my Soul Level 1 playthrough, that made me sort of master them and get the timings down, figure out the best ways to counter each attack, the best spot to stand when you're trying to attack them and deal damage where their attacks don't hit. I do feel like I've probably got a lot better at the Four Kings now, but they still will always take me down a few times each playthrough I do. At number 4 then we have the boss that is infamous and known for being the hardest boss, one of the hardest bosses in video game history, I think, and that's Ornstein and Smough. Obviously, when I first played this game, it took me a week to beat Ornstein and Smough. I used up all my humanity, summoning people in. I had to go farm humanity to become human again and summon different people in. And it was very, very difficult. In the end, I actually made a friendship through beating Ornstein and Smough. I was summoning people to beat Ornstein and Smough, and then there's this one person that I ended up actually befriending because I summoned him multiple times, and then we got to talk again on Xbox after we beat Ornstein and Smough. It was very, very difficult. It took me literally a week, several places where I put the game down, came back to it a couple of days later, tried again, put it down again, came back to it a couple of days later. I leveled up about 10-15 times trying to beat these. So I think for that alone, I mean, whilst they're not, I'd probably dice them less than Four Kings now. I think just like they are infamous for being so difficult, so their reputation sort of bumps up a couple of spots on this list probably, and because of how many times they did kick my ass back in the day. But I think when you do master the mechanics of Dark Souls, and you understand how the enemy AI works, these are the kind of boss that you can actually be a lot quicker when you really do understand them. I don't struggle on these guys now the way I used to on the Four Kings, because the Four Kings still get me nowadays. Ornstein and Smough, maybe I'll die to them once, but I can beat them on my own pretty comfortably now. Ornstein I can usually beat in about 15-20 seconds just by spamming attacks on him, and once you know, you can literally stun lock the guy if you've got a bleed weapon. So that's sort of Ornstein's weakness. And then Smough, usually you just got to sort of run away from him and wait for the right opportunities. If you keep running away from him, he'll never attack you. He'll never damage you with any of his attacks if you keep running away. So, and then you time when you go over to him and deal damage. I wouldn't say they're that hard. They're nowhere near as hard as the next three, the final three on the list. But they are probably the hardest boss in the main game anyway. So now we're going to move on to the very hard bosses. I think the three hardest bosses in the game, hands down. At number 3 we have Kalameet. Kalameet. Whoa. I struggled many times beating Kalameet. I haven't beaten any of the DLC bosses on my Soul Level 1 character yet. Or Gwyn. They're the only 5 bosses I haven't beaten on my Soul Level 1 character yet. I haven't even started them because I'm just nervous, to be honest. But Kalameet deals loads of damage. He's very aggressive. He moves all over the place. But again, when you get his tells down, like with every boss, really, when you figure out what he does when he does certain moves, you can master this guy. And I feel like when I finally beat Kalameet in my playthrough, I feel like at that point I had a good understanding of the boss, and I could probably beat him a couple more times. And then that's the thing, the best bosses in Dark Souls are the ones that, when you beat them, you end up beating them usually without getting hit many times, because at that point when you finally conquer them, you have a good understanding of their moves, what they do at certain times, and you're almost like a master of that fight when you've beaten them for the first time. And that's what the Kalameet and then Artorias, they're both like that for me. Well, I'm dying to them, but I'm okay when I die to them because I'm learning something constantly. Kalameet is one of the best examples of that. And the next boss at number 2, Artorias the Abysswalker, is the same with that as well. I absolutely love Artorias as well for the same reasons I love Kalameet, where every time you die you are learning, and then once you master the fight, you know exactly what to do and you can beat him probably over and over and over again, because you've got a true mastery of that boss. Artorias is probably, well, not probably, Artorias is my favourite fight in Dark Souls because it's a proper, fair fight. None of his attacks are bullshit, all of them you feel are fair. You've got a good window of opportunity to sort of tell what he's going to do and then react. He punishes you very hard if you slip up, but that's how Dark Souls is, that's how Dark Souls works. You get punished really hard when you make a mistake, but then when you do truly conquer your opponents, you feel like a true master of that fight. And that's why Kalameet and Artorias are at 3 and 2. They're both fantastic. Now Manus at number 1. I've always been very divided on Manus. Manus is a very, very, very aggressive boss. He deals the most damage of any of the bosses in the game. He's an absolute monster. He deals loads of damage. His attacks are really wild and crazy, and I still don't think I can predict them properly. I don't think Manus is as good as the other 3 fights in the DLC, personally. I think he's probably the weakest fight. But he's also the hardest fight, because his attacks are so fast, so crazy, and they deal so much damage. He's an absolute wild monster. He flails all over the place. It's crazy. And I don't like Manus as much as the others. He is very, very, very hard, but not always for the right reasons. I think he is more like bosses in Dark Souls 3 and Elden Ring, where the bosses are incredibly fast. They've got loads of different moves, super fast. You've got barely any time to react to them, and they hit incredibly hard. And I think Manus is sort of more leaning in that kind of direction than some of the other bosses in Dark Souls 1. That's not necessarily a bad thing. It just means they're even harder and you've got to try and master them on a whole different level. Just because you've got to be super fast and have super fast reaction speed to tell what he's doing. So Manus, I think, is a bit too much personally. But he's definitely the hardest boss in Dark Souls 1 anyway. So let me know your list down below. What bosses do you think are easy? What bosses do you think are hard? And just tell me down below what you think of them all. I'll have another video discussing my least favourite to most favourite bosses, probably tomorrow or the day after. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Maybe if you share this video, then you might enjoy it if it was good enough. Thank you again for watching. This is SoulReborn signing out. Have a good one.